What is the best Porsche of the 21st century? Cayman GT4, 997 GT3 RS 4 litre, maybe even the Carrera GT. We could have this conversation all day long. But when it comes to the most important and the most successful Porsche of the last 20 years, then there's only one answer, and it's called the Porsche Cayenne.
Launched in 2002, its introduction was hugely controversial as it broke a continuous line of pure Porsche sports coupes that had stretched back more than 70 years. Billed as a performance car within an SUV, Porsche's gamble quickly paid off as 270,000 first-gen models were sold, followed up by over 1 million second-gen cars.
The third gen car was then unveiled in 2017, and while its Macan baby bro now shifts more units, the Cayenne is still a hugely important car to Porsche, hence why when they give it a facelift, they don't mess around.
As well as tweaks to the styling, the Cayenne gets a heavily revised cabin, overhauled suspension and new engines. You can still have it as either an SUV or a coupe, with the former starting from just over £67,000 and the latter from just over 70. Changes to the outside include a new front end, bonnet and headlight design, while the wings feature a more prominent arch to their appearance. There's also new taillights, a redesigned rear bumper and expanded paint colour and wheel design options.
In short, you're not going to have any trouble telling the difference between this and a pre-facelift Cayenne. But what really grabs my attention is actually the headlamps, because while matrix LEDs are standard on the Cayenne, you can also get HD matrix LEDs, and what that is two high-definition modules and 32,000 pixels per lamp that are available in 1,000 increments of brightness. And that's really helpful because it means that the beam of light can be focused exactly where you want it and blocked out from the places where you don't want it. So say you're overtaking a car, it'll block out the light from where the car is, and then it'll shine the light in the lane that you're overtaking into, which means that not only do you get great visibility, but you also don't upset other road users, which is always a bonus. It's very clever.
Compare this to the first gen Cayenne and its bi-xenon 911 inspired headlights, and the difference is literally night and day. As for the interior, I swapped out of the S-Spec SUV version and into an e-hybrid coupe to see what had been changed as part of the facelift.
The interior is built around the Porsche driver experience, which is a design language that we've seen in the Taycan, and it's supposed to optimize operation and focus on the driver. But I'm not so sure about that last bit, because when I look out in front of me, pretty much the entire dashboard is dominated by screens, and well, they've never been great for driver focus. But anyway, straight ahead of me is the 12.6-inch digital instrument cluster, and it replaces traditional dials, which I think is a bit of a shame because they look more premium and just better in general, I think. But you can change it so that the display reads out with the big rev counter in the middle and the other information at the side, which is traditional Porsche. So I quite like that. There's also a very nice head-up display, which has got lots of information and it's super clear, so that's great. And the steering wheel is new, or it's been revised at least, so it's based on the one from the 911, and well, we know that Porsche do some lovely steering wheels, and this is no different. We've also got some tweaked and new bits around the steering wheel. So there's a stalk down here, which isn't particularly new sounding, but it's got more of the driver assistance systems on it. So there's the adaptive cruise control, there's a lane guidance assist, and I quite like that because although Porsche never had this with the Cayenne, it's better than having those switches and buttons on the steering wheel. It makes far more sense, so I like that. What I don't like so much though is that there's now a starter button rather than the nice kind of physical faux key that you had before. That felt a bit nicer and more tactile. This is just, you know, a regular button. And then the gear lever has moved from there to up here, and it's the kind of small stubby 911 style. Doesn't feel particularly natural having it up there. Maybe that's just something that I've learned through driving cars with the gear lever down there, but yeah. Not sure about it up there, but of course it does the same job. The benefit though to having it there is that you get more space in the center console for things like storage, so you can put the key down there or other bits and bobs, and there's space for physical aircon controls and switches. So if I want to turn my heated seat on or adjust the temperature by half a degree, I don't need to delve into the touchscreen and do it. All I need to do is just press a button here without taking my eyes off the road, which is way, way better. Speaking of the center infotainment screen, actually, it's 12.3 inches. It's called Porsche Communication Management Display, which sounds very fancy, and actually it is very fancy because it's an excellent system. It's got really clear, lovely graphics, feels very expensive, it's very easy to use, it's slick, the responses are quick, it's got tons of functionality, there's built-in Apple Music and Spotify, and generally it's just an example of Porsche doing infotainment systems very well indeed. It's also complemented by an optional 10.9-inch passenger information display. And we've seen this on other models in the Porsche range, but it's making its debut in the Cayenne, and it basically means that the passenger can view things such as vehicle data, or if they're normal, they can watch maybe a movie on Netflix while you're driving along. I think that's only in selected markets, but the idea is that they can have some entertainment while you're doing the driving, but you won't be able to see it and it won't be able to distract you because there's a special foil over the screen, which means that I can't see what's going on there, but the other way around, they can see all of this, but I can't see that, so that makes it nice and safe. The last thing I want to talk about in here, and it's one of my favorites, is the wireless phone charger. Now, you're probably thinking, why am I talking about a wireless phone charger? Because lots of cars have them. But in the Cayenne, it's now a cooled wireless phone charger. So there's cool air going in there and making it a nice cold area. And that's important because whenever I've used wireless phone chargers before, I can't really use them for more than half an hour. If the journey is longer than that, I've got to plug the phone in because it overheats my iPhone and it means that it doesn't work properly, and then the Apple CarPlay will crash and I'll get lost, and that's pretty miserable. In this, they've thought of that and it cools the phone down so you've got your optimum charging and none of your information and your Apple CarPlay gets broken on there. That is a fantastic idea, so well done, Porsche.
We won't go into too much detail on Practicality because although they've changed a lot with this facelift, Porsche hasn't miraculously made the Cayenne bigger. It's still got enough room for 5 full-sized adults though, and depending on whether you get the SUV or the coupe, the boot swallows up to 772 litres, falling to around 627 litres in the hybrid model. If you're looking for space, then you can do a lot worse than the Cayenne. But what about driving? We know how deeply impressive the engineering is from previous drives in the pre-facelift versions, but how have the changes impacted this latest model?
For starters, the Cayenne standard steel spring suspension gets new 2-valve shock absorbers and a modified setup so you get better comfort, especially at low speeds, and less pitch and roll when you start to press on a bit.
Has it helped? Well, I'd love to be able to tell you, but none of the cars on our press launch had the standard suspension fitted, so I honestly don't know. Going from previous experience though, the Air option has a much broader range of ability both in terms of comfort and handling, so it's definitely the option to go for.
And also, if you're buying a big luxury SUV for what's going to end up being £100,000 plus realistically, then do you want to get the basic suspension? No, you don't. You want to get the Air suspension, especially when it's the best version of it. I can't see why you get this car on the standard steel springs.
The range of engines has also been given a refresh, and from launch there's 3 to choose from. You've got the regular Cayenne with a 3-litre V6 turbo and 348 brake horsepower, the Cayenne e-hybrid with the same V6 plus a 25.9 kWh battery, thus making a total of 464 brake horsepower, and the Cayenne S with a 4-litre bi-turbo V8 developing 468 brake horsepower.
So the car I'm in now is the e-hybrid, and it's set to be the best seller in the UK, and you can understand why. There's a WLTP electric range of just under 50 miles, 0 to 62 miles an hour in 4.9 seconds, 160 mile an hour top speed, and it's got a really sweet sounding V6 engine which is really smooth, and it integrates nicely with the electric motor, so you haven't got a big battle between the two of them. It sounds like it should be pretty much perfect, but it's not. There are a few issues.
See, the main issue is that at over 2,400 kilograms, it's nearly 400 kilograms heavier than a regular Cayenne. 400 kilograms! And that means that it doesn't ride or handle as well. It's not bad, and it is competitive with rivals, but there are other examples of the Cayenne that drive better than this one does.
Also, the regen braking means that pedal feel is compromised, and of course you get that in a lot of plug-in hybrids, most plug-in hybrids, but I feel like it's taking me longer than usual to get used to the feel of the brake pedal in this car. At lower speeds it's not great for driving smoothly, and then at higher speeds, if you want to try and enjoy it on a twistier country road like this, I'm not getting the same kind of predictability that's helping me get the braking right for corners. It's not the end of the world, and I think with a bit more time with the car, yeah, I could work with it. But it's still a bit of a compromise in a place where you wouldn't really expect Porsche to give you a compromise.
As plug-in hybrid SUVs go, the e-hybrid is enjoyable and capable. However, it doesn't have the longest electric range out there, and the extra weight does blunt part of the car's appeal. So, what do you do?
Well, for me, the Cayenne S, which I drove yesterday off camera, is still a sweet spot in the range because it's got a lovely engine, it's comfortable, and it's about as well balanced as you could expect a 2-ton plus SUV to be. The only thing I'd say about it is that the pre-facelift Cayenne S was a bi-turbo V6. Now it's gone back to being a V8, and that means that there's about 140 kilograms added onto the curb weight, which is a shame. Part of the appeal of the pre-facelift S was that it had that light engine up front, and now it's gone to a V8, you have lost some of that. But it's nowhere near as heavy as the plug-in hybrid variant still, and also, unless you're going to back-to-back the cars on a track or on a country road, are you going to notice? I don't think you will. I also like the speed and the weight of the steering that you get throughout the drive modes. It's not just in the sportier drive modes. It's got really good body control, and when you come into a corner it still feels very secure, like you have an endless amount of grip, but it doesn't feel like it's boring. You can still have some fun with it because there is a little push towards understeer, but then you can solve that by putting your foot down because it will send the power to the rear wheel so it pushes you round and you can feel it working. It can be a fun car to drive despite its size and its weight on a good road, and that is obviously crucial for a Porsche. But you know what? I do remember previous Cayennes being a bit more focused on performance and outright fun. This isn't something that started with this facelift. It was definitely there when the 3rd gen came out first time round. But yeah, I think the 2nd gen Cayenne, that had definitely a greater focus on delivering a Porsche sports car experience in an SUV body shell. This, it's more of an all-rounder. It's still fun, it's still brilliant for an SUV on a road like this, but they've just taken it down a notch and they've made it have a wider appeal, I guess.
For some, this might be disappointing. The Cayenne is a Porsche after all, but having driven it around the Tyrol mountains for 48 hours, it's clear to me that this facelifted Gen 3 is, as an all-rounder, the most accomplished Cayenne yet, and a ruthlessly effective argument in favour of large SUVs as a whole. It has space, pace, comfort and cutting-edge tech in abundance, yet there's still a reassuring feeling of solidity and grandeur to its character. In short, like most Porsches, it makes for an imposing benchmark.